Hello YouTube, Steve here with an updated video on my Slappy Frontside Crooked Grinds tutorial. Now, some of you in the comments were a little unhappy about the level of detail that I provided on this trick tip. And so I thought I would make an extended version of the Slappy Front Crooks tutorial to answer as many questions as possible. Now, to start things out, I will say that this technique works on a variety of heights of curbs. Really, the key thing here with the curb is to make sure that the edge of the curb is a little bit rounded. Slappies, regardless of which slappy trick you're trying to do, whether it's a crooked grind, just a grind, 5-0, feeble, whatever, they get to be really challenging if you get a really sharp edge on the curb. So you want something that's somewhat rounded. But this will work on curbs that are 3 inches tall. It'll work on curbs that are 8 inches tall. Doesn't really matter. So you can just put that one to bed. I will say though, once you start getting above about 5 inches on the height of a curb, it's going to get a lot more challenging. So keep that in mind as you're trying to learn this. But if you start out with something a little bit shorter, it's going to get easier over time. All right, so I'm going to start out with the foot position on the board. And this is critical for getting into the front crooks and also holding it in a pinch. Remember, with slappy crooks in general, whether you're doing them frontside or backside, you have to pinch them. It doesn't work to do that kind of middle of the truck grind. So this technique in terms of your foot placement is really important for being able to pinch it. So this is my front foot, my left foot right here. I'm regular footed, so you're gonna see this here. I'm gonna put my front foot across the bolts so that my toe is in the pocket and my heel, really the center of my heel, is right on the heel side rail, so the left side of the board. And if you don't know what the rail is, it's the edge of the board. If you don't know what the pocket is, it's where that dip occurs in the nose and tail. So you want to have that right there. Now, when I put my back foot on, I want to do the opposite, where I have my back toes in the pocket and I have my back heel on the rail as well. So I'm kind of a little bit bow-footed, where my feet go out at different angles. And that's really critical for me to get up onto the edge of the curb, lock into the curb, and be able to pinch it so that I can actually do the crooked grind. Now, before I talk about weight distribution in terms of riding up to the curb, I want to talk about the angle. You're going to hit it at a 45-degree angle. Sure, you can take a little bit narrower of an angle if you want. Probably don't want to go much more than a 45-degree angle, just because you start getting more and more towards 90 degrees. You're just going to get up into bashing your nose into the curb and smashing up that nose, and you're looking at buying a new deck. So really want to try to aim it at 45 degrees or less. Depending on the curb though, you might want to take it at a sharper angle, and certainly as you're learning, some people take it at a little bit wider of an angle, so less than or greater than 45 degrees, more towards 90 degrees. Ultimately though, we're looking to grind across the curb, so you're going to really need that narrower angle, so 45 degrees or less, to not only lock into the slappy front crook, but also to grind it a decent amount of distance on the curb itself. All right, so now I'm going to talk about weight distribution. So with the weight distribution, obviously I got my feet set up in such a way where my heels are sitting right on my rail and my toes are sitting in the pockets, a little bit hanging off of the right side rail. So this is the kind of the inside, the back side. So as I'm trying to hit it right into a slappy grind, this is pretty much the standard technique for both frontside and backside crooked grinds. Basically what you're going to do is, as you're riding up at the angle, you start shifting your weight. So you're going to bend your ankles a little bit upward, and you shift your weight so that your weight starts going towards your front side or the left side rail. And what that does is your trucks, you see your wheels start to bend this way. What that does is it allows you to start lifting up that wheel off the ground so that it can ride up the curb and you ultimately catch your truck on the edge of the curb. So that's the first part, is getting up on that edge. Now, the second part, and this is what you have to do in a sequence, and this is really where the practice and repetition comes in, is once you feel that truck catch on the edge, you're gonna immediately have to shift your weight the other direction so that you can pinch it. And ultimately, what you should feel, particularly as you're doing that slappy, that crooked grind, is you're gonna start shifting your weight further and further forward on your front foot towards the direction of the curb. And your back foot becomes really lightweight, so you're almost just kind of dangling it off a little bit. But that weight shift from the left side of your board, in my case, or your front side, to the back side is what allows you to get into that pinch in combination with shifting your weight forward. So basically moving into like a nose manual. So that is really, really critical. If you don't do that, you're gonna wind up in like a slappy, like frontside wheelie grind or something like that. Or maybe you get a little bit farther over and you get into low C. Neither of which we're trying to do today. We're trying to get into the front crook. So you really have to be able to shift your weight this way and then forward. So I'm gonna show that. I'm gonna demonstrate this again. Now let me break this trick down for you. First, I'm gonna roll up with my feet in that angled position. Then I climb up onto the curb and hold my truck in place in that pinch. I put all of my weight onto the nose with the back foot dangling. Then I grind it a bit more and then start straightening out my body and get my legs parallel. Then I roll away. I'm gonna go selfie stick mode on this particular part, but one of the most challenging parts of actually getting onto the slappy front crook is to shift that weight around and get it in and locked in, and then figure out how you're gonna get out of it. So just to reiterate what I was saying about the foot placement, if you lean on your heel as you're going into that angle, you're gonna see your truck bash, and then that front wheel is gonna climb onto the edge. And as soon as it hits that edge, that's where your weight shifts and you get into that pinch. And then you're kind of in a matter of grinding it out. So that's what the weight shift is all about, is really getting in so that your truck looks like that when it's hitting the curb. Now, as I get out of the front crook, so let's just say I'm pinched in my front crook like this. I'm sliding along really well, yada, yada, yada. I can't really balance this without moving, so I apologize if this gets shaky. The hardest part about the next piece of this is just getting out of your grind. So what you actually have to do is kind of get like a little bit of a hop shifty out of it, where you sort of hop backwards and straighten out at the same time. That kind of requires you to almost curl your toes around the edge of the backside rail and then straighten out. But this is something that just takes practice, and I guarantee you is going to be one of the biggest sources of frustration as you're trying to learn this. I would say don't give up. It's possible, and you can do it. I can do it, so you can do it too. But one thing that can help as you're trying to get used to this is to actually twist your back foot on this so that you drop to front nose slide. And if you're in frontside nose slide, then you can drop down and kind of kick turn out. So there are a couple of ways of basically shuffling your way out of a slappy front crook, and it just takes time and repetition. I'll put in a few examples of me like struggling with this, but a lot of times for me, I'll come out of this and just like bash my axles into the side of the curb and just get stuck. And that's a common problem. You just have to deal with it. Sometimes waxing it can help. But then there are other times where I'm able to shifty out of it successfully, get enough good clearance to roll away, and then I'm good. So it just takes time and repetition to get out of it, but that's going to be one of the more challenging pieces. So if you encounter that, all I would say there is just don't give up, don't get frustrated. You'll get through it. All right, so a couple of last tips on the Slappy front crook. One, the brand of truck you have does not matter. I've done this on Indies, Aces, Thunders. Well, those are the only 3 truck brands I've skated, but there's plenty of people on the internet doing them on Crux, on Tensor, on Venture. Those are the only brands that actually matter at this point. But there's some others out there, Silver, Destructo, Royal, I've seen. So the brand of truck doesn't matter. The geometry doesn't really matter. As long as you can do the weight shifting, that's really the important thing on the Slappy front crooks. Other tips I would say, make sure that your curb is relatively waxed up. You want to make sure that it's smooth enough on top and slick enough to where your nose can glide across it and not get too hung up. If you're really concerned about it, you might even want to wax your nose just to get that nice smooth slide. That will really help if you're finding yourself getting stuck all the time. Another thing that I will say, and I'll show my trucks to demonstrate this, but you can see that my trucks are pretty grooved in at this point. I do a lot of Slappy front crooks and a lot of cricket grinds when I go to skate parks and skate in the street. And the more of a groove I get in my truck, the easier it is, particularly with Slappy grinds, to do them more consistently. So not saying that you want to take a file and file them down, but the more that you do crooked grinds, frontside and backside, the easier it's going to get because you get those grooves to lock in on. Other than that, I would just say this trick takes a lot of patience and can be a bit difficult to get, but you just keep at it. And eventually you get it. I'm not that great of a skater. I have been skating for 20 plus years without quitting or anything like that, so that does help. And if you're getting back into skating after a long break or maybe skating for the first time, it's going to take a little bit longer, but Slappies are one of those tricks that are really accessible for people, which makes curb skating so great, and I hope more people get into it as a result. But anyway, that's it. If you have any questions or comments, I will answer them. Just put them in the comments. I'm here to just give out information that I have that's worked. That's what this channel is about. This channel is not about monetization. It's not about selling products or anything like that. I've got a job. I'm good there. But I just want to share what I know and the information I have. So thanks so much for watching, and maybe I'll do some more trick tips in the future, but enjoy this one and have a great one.